Welcome to the CSDE Policies for Lost Links Online Administration Training. In Connecticut, students in grades kindergarten through 12, identified as English learners, multilingual learners, are expected to participate in the Lost Links testing during the testing window. And this year, the testing window is January 2nd through March 7th, 2025. Note that if you have students who are transitioning to post-high school programs but are still listed in PSIS as a grade 12 student, they too must be tested. ELACs will need to work closely with district staff to identify students placed outside the district. These students are included in the student management system, and districts determine how these students will be tested. Testing ELs, MLs on the lost links is the responsibility of the reporting districts because they are ultimately held accountable for these students. Online testing with Form F is not allowed outside the state of Connecticut. Out-of-state students need to take the test on paper. The ELAC needs to order a paper copy for those students using the accommodated paper form available on the Connecticut DRC website. That should be ordered no later than February 7th, 2025. DRC will ship the materials to the Connecticut district. Then the ELAC collaborates with the out-of-state contact to conduct a test administration within the appropriate window. Districts must return all completed paper tests to DRC for scoring by February 28, 2025. A list of students enrolled in APSEPs based on the October PSIS collection will be provided to ELACs by November 20th, 2024. For planning and communication purposes, you should have access to this list. These students are included in the DRC student management system. For many of you, PowerSchool is your district's data system. However, this is different from the state student database, PSIS. You should not assume that just because something is in PowerSchool, it will be reported to the state. So please be sure to work with your district PSIS data manager to ensure the correct student information is being reported to the state system. In early November, the CSDE takes a snapshot of the October 1 PSIS collection and loads specific demographic information such as ELML status into the PSIS registration module. Unlike the collection module, registration is a live database that reflects what's true at that particular moment. Registration is the source of student information that is sent to all our assessment vendors, including DRC. We ask, please do not manually add students to DRC's portal. Once students are properly registered, they will be provided to DRC in a daily file. When you manually add students, it causes errors that may affect the reporting of that student's results. It's important to note that only students who were identified as ELs, MLs have their information set to DRC to be rostered in the Insight system. In the same vein, only students identified as special education or Section 504 and PSIS will be eligible for accommodations on the lost links. These are the important dates for this year's administration of the lost links. A list of students enrolled in APSEPs based on the PSIS collection will be provided to ELACs on November 20th, 2024 for planning and communication purposes. Insight will be open for ELACs beginning December 9th. At this point, ELACs can begin entering accommodations manually for each student who has an approved accommodation. We've provided detailed information on entering accommodations in the Accessibility Guidelines training video, which will be posted to the Connecticut DRC Lost Links webpage. It's imperative that students who are eligible for the alternate assessments have a completed Connecticut alternate assessment system eligibility form in their finalized and implemented IEP within the CTSEDS platform to ensure that they're rostered to the correct assessment, which would be the alternate assessment and not the lost links. If this is done beyond December 20th, then the student might be rostered incorrectly to the lost links. There's also a small group of students who may not be able to access a specific tested domain on the lost links due to a disability. For example, some English learners, multilingual learners, may also have a primary disability category of deaf or hard of hearing and are unable to access the listening subtest of the loss links due to this disability. Similarly, some ELs, MLs with an IEP or 504 plan may be nonverbal and due to their disability, even when provided assistive technology or augmentative and alternative communication supports, may not be able to participate in the speaking subtest. To communicate to the CSDE about these students, the ELAC will submit the student-specific information using the domain exemption form between November 12th and December 20th, 2024. If you submit the form for a domain exemption after December 20th, 2024, you must also notify Michael Sabatos via email at michael.sabatos@ct.gov. Please do not email any student names, only SACIDs. Accommodated paper forms must be received in time to test the students and return the materials, which is February 28th. That's before the end of the window to allow for time to process the paper forms and score them. As we did last year, DRC will create test sessions for all schools within the district in 2025. The process will start with the PSIS student files submitted on November 25th, 2024, and will continue throughout the testing window. DRC will create one test session per school and per grade. All students will be added to the corresponding test session with all 4 Lost Links domains already selected. New or updated students will be added to existing test sessions during test windows. Can districts edit any of the test session information? Yes. ELACs can modify test sessions created by DRC. ELACs can add test sessions, but it's strongly recommended that ELACs use DRC-created test sessions to make sure all students are assigned 4 domains for testing. Each student participating in the Lost Links must meet each of the following components of the eligibility criteria for each applicable subtest of the Lost Links to be eligible to receive accommodations. The student must be identified as an ELML in PSIS, and the student must be identified as a student with disabilities with a finalized and implemented IEP or Section 504 plan. And the need for any accommodation must be documented in the finalized and implemented IEP or 504 plan and used regularly for instruction and assessment. And using the accessibility chart of available accommodations for the Lost Links, the team determines that the student requires one or more of the allowable accommodations described in the Lost Links Test Administration Manual in Appendix C. Please work with your district special education staff to ensure accurate CTSEDS information is represented for your ELML students with disabilities prior to the start of the testing window. The CSDE has posted a detailed explanation of the accessibility guidelines in a training video and scripted PDF that will be posted to the Connecticut DRC Lost Links webpage. We all know that students will move between schools in the same district during the testing window. As soon as the student is registered in PSIS in the same district but in a new school, then the student is rostered in that new school and the DRC Insight portal. The student's new information should be available in the Insight portal within 48 hours of the updated PSIS. The ELAC should check the student's profile in the DRC Insight portal and look for any existing tickets assigned to that student. They should also review the student's test-taking status. If the student started taking one subtest, the student must finish testing in the same test ticket and all remaining subtests in that test session created at the previous school. The test ticket should be securely removed from one school to the other so that the student can resume testing using that original test ticket. If this doesn't occur, the student will not receive an overall score and won't be eligible to exit ELML status. It should be known that test results for the student will remain at the previous school where the test session and test ticket were created in the DRC portal. However, the final results will follow the student in the EdSite portal. If the student hasn't started any testing, they can be placed in a new test session at the new school and begin testing. In this situation, test results for the student would be reported to the new school where the test session and test ticket were created in the DRC Insight portal. When a student is registered in PSIS in a new district and subsequently a new school, the student is rostered in the new district and school in the DRC portal. If a site has a new student from a different district, we ask that you first contact the ELAC from the original district to see if the student has started testing and which subtests are taken. You can go to EdSite to view the ELAC contact information. If testing is started, the same test ticket must be securely sent, and again, the student must finish testing with that original ticket in the same test session. If this doesn't occur, the student will not receive an overall score, and the student won't be able to exit ELML status. The ELAC at the new district will not be able to view the test session from the previous district. Test results for the student will remain in the previous district where the test session and test ticket were created in the DRC Insight portal. However, all test results for the student will follow the student in EdSite. If the student hasn't started any testing, the student can be placed in a new test session at the new district and school and begin testing. LostLinks is not a timed test, but here are some estimates by subtest so you can plan testing. These times don't include setup activities. Subtests can be given in any order, although most people administer the tests in the order listed on your screen. You don't need to give all the subtests on the same day, but it's recommended to spread the test over several days, especially for younger children. We do ask that if you start a subtest, you finish it in the same day. Use your professional judgment in special circumstances. We want to note that while individual students may have different testing needs, extending test sessions well beyond the suggested times is not recommended. Extra time does not necessarily correlate with achievement. Test security is essential to ensuring the integrity of the test, the accuracy of test results, and ultimately the success of the testing program. A secure test environment requires that ELACs and proctors protect test materials from being reviewed by students or teachers. Items or other secure test materials should never be shared before or after testing, nor should items be discussed. The LostLink should only be administered through the password-protected testing environment of the DRC test delivery system unless directed otherwise by the CSDE. During testing, proctors should ensure that students don't have access to resources related to the content being tested. We can't stress enough that all phones and smartwatches, including earbuds, should be removed during testing. Lastly, the proctor should promote a quiet test-taking environment, void of talking or other distractions, and actively proctor the sessions. Test security and suggestions on how to prepare your testing environment are addressed at length in the LostLinks Test Administration Manual posted to the Connecticut DRC LostLinks webpage. Each session has its own directions, and proctors must administer all test items according to instructions provided in the online environment. Modifications or changes are not permitted and are considered inappropriate test practices and therefore a test irregularity. Any inappropriate test practices must be reported immediately so there's time to fairly address the situation. This includes the use of electronic devices and the sharing or mishandling of test materials. If a test proctor demonstrates inappropriate proctoring, such as providing or modifying student answers or using secure test materials inappropriately, the ELAC should contact a student assessment office immediately. We can be reached via email or by phone. We recognize that errors occur during testing, which is why we have the appeals process. All appeals should be entered on the LostLinks appeals form hyperlinked above and available on the Connecticut DRC LostLinks webpage. The ELAC should be the only one to enter the appeal in the form, and we say that to avoid confusion. Please stop testing the student in all domains until the appeal is approved. We work diligently on the appeals and will respond as quickly as possible. Some appeals are solved simply by unlocking the test. The ELAC can simply submit an appeal for an unlock, which allows the student to re-enter the same test where they left off. Other appeals are more complex and are usually due to an administration error. These might require us to regenerate or clear the test, allowing the student to begin anew at item number 1. Because students are directly impacted by these types of errors, the CSDE does require documentation from the ELAC. And when you send us information, again, please refrain from emailing students' names. We ask that you use the SACID in all communications unless they are faxed. The appeals process is detailed in Appendix B of the 2024 Lost Links Test Administration Manual, and please don't hesitate to contact the CSDE for guidance on potential test irregularities and next steps. Everything we cover in this training can be found on the Connecticut DRC Lost Links website. Bookmark this website. It's specific to Connecticut and contains valuable information for all ELACs and technology contacts regarding reference materials, training videos, and communication reminders. It's recommended that all ELACs register for the Student Assessment News. We expect ELACs to share the communications from the CSDE and DRC with staff, including the district administrator for testing and the special education director. Remember, as the ELAC, you are the point of contact in the district. Should you miss a communication, we post all important information on the Connecticut DRC Lost Links site, the CSDE assessment web pages, and the updated Connecticut portal. Please let your IT staff know that the DRC email address at datarecognitioncorps.com should be on the allow list, so important notices from DRC are not blocked, quarantined, or sent to the spam folder. We've provided a number of resources, all of which are hyperlinked here and available on the Connecticut DRC Lost Links webpage. And here is the contact information for our team at the CSDE. We are always available to answer any of your questions. And lastly, DRC can be contacted using the Lost Links help desk phone number or email address.